My friends, my brother, sister, and I think we are our parents' children. I grew up in Baltimore, the youngest kid. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I was a teenager before I learned she had been a practicing attorney, and in fact, being observant and community service. They volunteered for more organizations than I can count. And in fact, my dad usually ended up being chairman or president of whatever committee he was on. When I grew up, my dad paid a lot of attention to me, and I loved it. Every Sunday, we would go to the Baltimore Zoo in the beautiful Druid Hill Park. I remember the smells from the elephant cage, and I still worry about the fact that I can remember the chain around the right foot of each elephant. What I really liked were the guys that ate bananas, the monkeys and the chimps. That's still my favorite when I go to the Miami Zoo, or the last time I went to the Miami Zoo with my kids. My dad wasn't a great athlete. He took up golf in his 40s, but he encouraged me to play ball. He took me to my first professional football game, and wouldn't you know, it was a game that John Unitas, the Hall of Fame quarterback, perhaps the best quarterback of all time, especially if you're from Baltimore, came off the bench in the fourth quarter and led 3 touchdown drives. 5 years later, he took me to a Major League All-Star game. And what's the importance of that? 25 years later, I could brag to my son, a little leaguer, that I saw Hall of Famers like Mickey Mantle, the Say Hey Kid, the greatest center fielder of all time, Willie Mays, and Warren Spahn. He was impressed. My dad would come to my Little League games. I sucked. But I took up lacrosse, and he would come to my lacrosse games in high school. My high school, 4,000 kids, double shifts. Fortunately, I had the same classmates from 9th through 12th grade. I met my first steady girlfriend when I was a junior. We were smitten. And when I was a senior, I was president of the senior class, which meant access to getting out of class to avoid things I didn't want to hear, because I was senior class president. Alas, we go to college. My wife's campus was only an hour from my campus. I thought I was pretty smart, but when I got into Georgetown, I realized there were some truly smart people there. I was smart enough to join the men's rugby club, and I've had a passion for that sport ever since. After college, we got married. We moved to Pittsburgh. I went to graduate school. 2 years later, we were sort of less smitten. We moved to Rhode Island because my wife got into graduate school. 2 years later, we weren't married. However, I got to play rugby with the Providence Rugby Club, and they had a great social aspect. Rhode Island DOT, Department of Transportation. I was the first non-political hire ever to work for them. A few years later, I moved to Miami. I was recruited to come here. I worked with bright people on bright projects. I met my wife at the condo pool. We had 2 kids. I retired from playing rugby. I realized promotions don't always occur on merit. So I wrangled a job in the finance director's office. And the next 3 years of my life were the most exciting years. We issued more bond issues than any other organization in the state of Florida, with the exception of Jacksonville Electric Authority. And then I reached for the brass ring. I switched sides of the table. I became a public finance banker. We moved to Coral Springs. I traveled for 8 years. I was away 3 or 4 days a week. And I realized if I was going to be the husband I wanted to be and the father I wanted to be, it was time to switch careers. And in fact, I did. Instead of working on finances of government, I worked with finances of individuals and their families. Do I have any regrets? Just one. I had a neighbor, Phil, who had recommended I join Toastmasters. It took me 25 years to listen to it. We ended up, as I said earlier, joining Club Awesome. Importantly, since I moved back to Coral Springs, got out into a different career, I've been able to get involved in community service. And that community service involves Financial Advisory Committee for the city, affordable housing, and became president of a 501c3, the Fort Lauderdale Rugby Foundation. For me, it's a labor of love. Mr. Toastmaster?